So I've been spiraling about sex recently. Like, what is intimacy? What is casual sex? And what the fuck are we supposed to be doing?
Bitch, what I was trying to say is this situation got me so wet and so dry at the same time. Exactly.
What's up, bitches? Welcome back to another episode of So What, So Dry. I'm one of your hosts, Fiji, like the island, like the water. I feel like I'm finally finding my style again, and I work in social media and marketing.
And I'm your other host, Autumn. Like the season, I've been feeling like a robot at work lately, and I need to be creative, and I work in entertainment. Today, we're having a big conversation about what sex is, what is the purpose of it, and what the fuck are we doing as a society and culture.
Yes, we're going to figure it out in this episode, or maybe not, but stay tuned to the end of the episode where we wrap up with what we're wet, dry, and still confused about the topic, because it is okay to still be confused.
Okay, guys, so this is a little bit of a different type of episode. Recently, I've been spiraling over the idea of sex. Like I said, I've always been someone that's very empowered by sex, love being sexual. I was a sex worker for like 2 years, loved it. I used to love casual sex and one night stands. Like, that was my shit. That's what I wanted to do. That's what made me feel good.
Free.
Yeah. And then I was celibate for a little minute. And now I'm like struggling with the whole idea of sex in general. And also like losing my love of casual one night stands. Like, I feel like that's something I shouldn't be doing, and what the fuck? Like,
or
that's
it wasn't
not
ever
me.
really love in the first place is
Right.
something we've been talking about too, which is like
Right. So I just feel like overall we're all feeling a little eerie about sex, but like that is where it's coming from. Is I personally am literally like freaking out over the past 2 weeks, but after doing this episode, I feel a lot better. So I hope that you guys can too once we get into it. Overall, there are a lot of polarizing ideas about sex going on in our culture right now. We have the Puritan movement, the celibacy movement, and also hookup culture is still thriving. Have sex whenever and with whomever you want. Sex work, transactional sex, hypergamy is having its moment in our culture, but also anti-sex work feminists are loud as fuck. We've realized that sex ed is an absolute joke, and we're having to unlearn that. And everyone's had shitty one night stands, good one night stands, shitty relationship sex, bad relationship sex, bad masturbating sessions, good masturbating sessions. And we all know that sex literally is the biggest norm. Everyone does it besides asexual people, people that don't want to have sex, but it's literally the biggest norm that unifies us all as humans, one of them. And it's also the biggest taboo. And it seems like everyone knows what they're doing, but no one really ever does. And there was this quote that backs that up from Pleasure Activism from the chapter wherein I write about sex. Sex is the most common behavior among humans after birth, breathing, sleeping, and death. And too often we still feel shame or bite our tongue when it comes up.
Yup.
Everyone's relationship to sex is obviously completely different, completely nuanced. We have trauma, we have insecurities, there's sex addictions, body dysmorphia. There's literally, the list goes on forever. Everyone's relationship to sex is so imperfectly perfect, vulnerable, and all of those things. And then it's like you see in society, everyone has such opposite ideas of what sex is and what it should be. Even just like, you like vanilla sex, or you like really kinky sex, you're a slut, you're a prude, you like dick, you like pussy. Like, it's all so opposite from one each other. And it's like, you feel like you have to say, this is the type of sex I have, because I definitely don't have the other end. It's like we're so polarized on either ends of the spectrum. So it's like, how do we learn how to love all of this and just accept it as it is, and know that like your feelings and your relationship about sex is going to change? It doesn't need to be so rigid, and how to just be okay with that. And how do we determine what our relationship to sex is amidst all this fucking noise? And one of the questions I really liked that sparked this episode was, what is sex supposed to be for? And it's like, we feel like, both of us feel like a lot of people are struggling with this. Like people growing up and people that are already grown, honestly. But what is sex supposed to be for? Like the supposed to, like, trips me out. Like I almost feel like sex should not be anything. Like there should be no rules attached to it. And like an example is like, one of the biggest like sex rules that you maybe see that isn't, I'm not saying it's bad, but it's like, you should wear protection when you have sex so you cannot get an STI or an STD. But what happens when you get assaulted? What happens if you're afraid to speak up? Because let's be honest, like a lot of people in our culture don't want to use protection. And I'm not saying that's good. Let's go for it. But I'm just saying like all the shoulds, it just turns into shame when that ends up not happening. So like I do agree that we should all wear protection, but it's like, then when you don't, it's like it's an extra layer of shame when you already feel shame about the sex maybe and other things.
Yeah, because it's like, obviously we should wear condoms, right? When we're like fucking other people. But like if you're in a long-term relationship, like I've been in long-term relationships where I was on birth control or wasn't, and they didn't wear a condom and just pulled out. And is it risky? Like, of course it is. But it's also like, we're human, we're in the moment, we're attracted, we're going with that flow. And like I feel like Americans talk about sex in such a like, we talked about this in our sex ed episode, like such a scientific, like this is how it's supposed to be done type of way, that we forget like the like romance and the like fun and the like whatever out of it. So it's like, yes, there's ways you're supposed to be safe and supposed to be protected, but also like sex is beautiful and it's pleasure and it should be like spur of the moment. You'll figure out the consequences later. Like sometimes it should be like that.
Yeah, and I think we can still say let's wear protection and just pair that with like, but if you don't, you're not gonna die. Like it's going to be okay, because it really feels like, oh my God, I'm 10 times more of a whore because I didn't speak up about protection. Like maybe it was
like,
my
guys,
fault.
Like STDs are treatable, and it's like, it's not like we're advocating don't wear protection, like da-da-da. Like you can make protection sexy too, all of that stuff.
Right.
But it's
oh
like,
my God. Yes.
Like it's more the idea of the shame you feel about yourself, like after being like, oh, I didn't do this right. I wasn't being safe. I was being slutty, especially as a woman.
Yeah. So that's why I'm like really discovering, I'm like, I don't think there should be any rules like attached to sex, like at all. Like, again, sex is about finding your own personal relationship to it and finding what works for you. And then I also liked the question, like, how serious should we be about sex? But it's also like, is sex something we need to be serious about? Because, like, also saying that doesn't really sound right with me, because I'm like, like sex is serious, because I'm like, sex work is very serious. There's clear boundaries, like 99% of the time.
It's a job.
It's transactional. No matter if the sex is shitty, I'm still gaining that X amount of dollars or whatever the thing is. Yeah. And it's like, love with your partner is serious, but it's like, I'm like a casual one night stand. I'm like, does that need to be that serious though? Because like, I went from thinking, no, it does not need to be serious, to thinking like, yes, you can only fuck like when it's holy and sacred. So I'm like, there's a middle ground for sure, but I just don't like that either.
Yeah, I feel like there has to be like a balance between, well, how are we looking at serious too? Because like we just did our in and outs episode and we're like, everyone needs to take things more seriously. Sincerity, like all of that. And I think that's a thing. But like when I think of taking sex seriously, I think of it being like stuffy and like, okay, we're going to like do this the way we're supposed to.
Bro.
Like that sounds like not hot at all, you know? So.
But I more so just mean like the people that we fuck and the experiences like we have, like, should we just be like, oh, like it was just a night, it doesn't matter? Yes. Or do we take that seriously? Like, that's what I'm like, I don't really know.
Depends on the day.
Yeah, it depends on the day. Exactly. That's how I feel too. But basically, I just want to discover like a medium. Like we have pro-sex work, pro-sex positive, intersectional feminism. We have everything toxic we've ingrained growing up. And then also just like what personally works for us. Like there's so much to like consider and is being thrown at us. So it just seems really hard right now. But basically in this episode, I want us to like find that love for casual sex, like spur of the moment sex again. Question if we should take sex seriously or not, and think about the idea of why we fuck.
Okay, why do we fuck?
And also, just want to say, like, other than books and art, like, there's not a lot of, like, scholarly articles about this sort of thing. So that is, like, a lot of what the research is going to be, is literature and art.
I feel like that makes sense.
I was
because,
like,
again,
wait.
going back to, like, but, like, it's, like, scientific sex can be all that bullshit. But when we're talking about our emotions, how we feel, like, sex is art. It's sincere. It's beautiful. It can be all that stuff. And, like, how are you going to have a, I don't know, scientific, I don't know.
I know, exactly. So yeah, it all just feels really fucking hard right now. So we asked you guys a little bit about your feelings towards sex. So let's just see how you guys are feeling. The first question is, do you feel powerful when you have sex? 59% said yes. 33% said sometimes, and 8% said no.
The next one we asked you guys, do you feel happy thinking about past and or future sexual experiences? 54% of you guys said yes, 9% said no, and 37% said sometimes.
Then we asked, do you feel shame when thinking about past and or future sexual experiences? 28% said yes, 38% said no, and 24% said sometimes. So honestly, it's like, I feel like majority of this is positive. Like, most people do feel powerful. Most people also feel happy. But then the shame one was like 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, like very evenly split. And a listener even submitted a story and said some of these questions made me want to cry. And like, girl, me too, because I'm like, I need to do a whole lot more thinking and analyzing my happy and good sexual experiences rather than focusing on the ones that give me shame.
Right.
Like, that is what my whole life has fucking been, when that's not true at all.
Yeah.
And also I just, want to get back to really feeling powerful during sex, because lately, you guys, I do not feel powerful. I feel like someone, like, there's like a tiny monkey in my head that's like controlling me. Like, I have autonomy and I'm using it and everything, but it's like, I just feel like I'm going with the motions rather than being like intentionally powerful and like
an active agent in your own. And you've been out of it too, because you were celibate for like a year.
Right. So it's hard. Like,
yeah, I feel you. Like, these questions, like, I think I said yes for feeling powerful, yes for feeling happy, and sometimes for feeling shame. I feel like it really depends on the day. Like, if you ask me, like, the night after a really bad one-night stand, like, I'm going to be like, no, I hate my life. Everything's terrible, like, whatever. But, like, when I think about my sex life as a whole, and I've had a lot of, like, not great sexual experiences, but I've also had a lot of, like, great sexual experiences and a lot of fucking mediocre ones. Like, overall, like, I love sex so much that I feel like I choose to look at the happy ones, because, and maybe it's just me compartmentalizing. Like, I don't want to, like, focus on the bad. Like, I don't allow myself to, because I don't want to spiral.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But, like, I think for the most part, I feel happy, but I definitely do still feel shame. And I notice myself still feeling shame sometimes, like, during sex. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you'll go to do something and then you'll be like second guessing yourself, even though you know this is going to feel good, it's going to please your partner, but like something in your head from your childhood or like doesn't like click.
Yeah, because shame is so layered when it comes to sex. It's like, you feel shame about how you performed. You feel shame about your body. Something weird happened. Or also you just feel shame for like fucking period. Just like doing that.
After. Like sometimes like the come down off of an orgasm too, I feel like is definitely a thing. Like the come down off drugs, come down off an orgasm is intense.
It is. It really is. And we're actually going to get into that. So I love that you said that, bitch. But yeah, last thing I'll say is like, I feel like it's not a bad thing to compartmentalize. Compartmentalize. Okay. It's not always a bad thing to compartmentalize what you just said, because I'm like, I think we should focus more on the happy things as well. It's like, it's important to unlearn the bad sexual experiences, like through therapy, trauma healing, massages, journaling, all that shit. But at the end of the day, it's like, sometimes I want to wrap that box up and I'm like, let's move forward, you know?
And it's like, I look
you've
at
been
sex
saying
as
this.
like, like a regular part of life. And it's like, I feel the same way about work. Like I get into this situation all the time with people I work with that like complain all the time or like do all this stuff, and I'm just like, okay, like I would rather look at my job, like if I look at things like they're in a happier place, like
Right.
I'm gonna show up happier and be happier, and everything's versus looking at it like a drag all the time, you know?
I
Like
know.
once you
Just
change
makes
your
it
thinking,
worse. Yeah.
you're like lighter.
Exactly. Exactly. So now we're going to get into like, I'm all like spiraling, like what the fuck is sex? What's the purpose of it? So this is my work. I just drew up a quick list.
Okay.
And there are so many purposes of sex, you guys. That's the tea, bitch. Like there's so many. You guys might be like, duh, Autumn, but like just bear with me, okay? We're getting to a point. So it's like you fuck when you're in love, when you're getting to know someone new, one night stand, sex work, transactional sex, happy sex, angry sex, sad sex, releasing energy, coping mechanism, to discover new things about yourself, to discover your sexuality. I just got a promotion at work sex. You look so good. I need to stop everything and fuck you right now sex. Christian sex, to have a baby. Spiritual sex, tantra, and others.
Oh wait, can I add another one?
Yes.
Like drug sex, like
Okay,
low-key, like
bitch.
ecstasy, Molly, like drunk sex, messy,
Trippy
sloppy
sex, we're
sex,
tripping
like,
together sex. Yeah.
public sex, yes.
Like also
yes,
like
those are some of my
like
favorite.
breakup sex, hateful
Breakup,
sex.
makeup sex.
Bro, oh
yeah.
my God. How could I forget, bitch? That's actually like one of the best. Breakup
Right.
sex, I don't know. Like sometimes it like hurts after. But makeup sex is so good. I know, there's nuances. It's wet and dry. So we asked you guys, what is the reason behind you having sex majority of the time? And 45% said, I'm in love with them. They're my partner. Yeah.
Aw, I'm jealous.
And 34% said, intentional. I want to for a specific reason. Love. 16% said spur of the moment, one night stand, and 5% said sex work / transactional sex. Fiji, how about you? What did you vote for?
Again, I feel like this depends on the day, depends on the time of year, whatever. Because both of us are long-term relationship bitches and then single slutty bitches. Like I feel like when I'm in a long-term relationship for like 3+ years, obviously my partner is why I'm having sex and that is intentional, whatever. When I'm single, like right now, I'm just fucking willy-nilly. Like, I don't know. Like, sometimes there's an intention. Like, sometimes I go out and I had a hard work week and I know I'm about to get fucked up. I want to go home with someone or, like, I texted someone, like, whatever. But, like, generally, spur of the moment.
Right. No, girl, I think me
right
too.
Now, yeah.
I think me too. Even though I haven't been fucking, like, that's definitely, like, if I'm talking, like, majority of the sex,
of your
like,
life.
It's definitely transactional and one night stands because also it's like, like I've had a lot of great sex with my partners and like it's beautiful, but it's like we're like role playing. It is a one night stand. Like I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
Like I just feel like that is like been my thing. But right now I definitely want to practice like knowing why I want to have sex and then doing that. Even if it's like to release energy, to go have drug sex, like even if it's that, even if it's not the healthiest decision, at least know like what you're doing and like have that autonomy and being like, yep, it's happening, okay? So the next question we asked you guys, during which type of sex do you feel your best, physically, emotionally, and spiritually? 70% said, I'm in love with them. They're my partner. You guys are some softies. No, I'm just kidding. 19% said, intentional. I want to for a specific reason. 11% said, spur of the moment, one night stand. 0% said sex work. That's tea. Honestly, you guys, I know I've been spiraling, but like right now in this moment, I really think like one night stands and like spur of the moment sex is like an artful, playful, like theater experience. Like I think it's art, bitch. I was about
to say that because I was like,
it's beautiful.
Your love and partner, because it's like, okay, the actual sex, like the sex itself from like foreplay to orgasm to cuddling, whatever, with your partner is the best pleasureful, if we're talking about orgasm to me.
Right.
But like the hero's journey of a one night stand, like you meet them at a bar, you like the make out in the parking lot, you like go to a car, you're like running down the street, you end up at someone's house and drink beers at 4 a.m.
Like we are a movie right now.
That is hot. Like that is more of the fantasy of the kink. And once you get in a relationship, like you kind of lose that like freedom.
Yeah, so like honestly 2 weeks ago, I probably would have been like, I'm in love with them, they're my partner, like whatever, because I was going down this like fucking alt-right rabbit hole almost. Like honestly,
No, you were
to
not
a
there.
degree, bitch.
You were not there, but I would just keep checking you like,
Yeah.
alright, like are you
And I would get like low-key sensitive about it. I'm like, oh my God. Like, but it's like that's what I needed. But anyways, guys, but I just feel like, yes, like I think one night stands are honestly just beautiful, like the idea of it. And yeah, that's where I'm at now.
The release,
so no going back. Exactly. But basically, how do we learn to accept it all? The intentional sex, the I'm in love with you sex, the one night stands. Like, how do we learn to just be okay with it and all that comes with it? So now we're going to go into just seeing beauty in all different types of sex. And we're going to channel that through this amazing written piece that is like poetry, but also just like personal essay vibes. It's from the chapter Fucking, Having Sex, Making Love in Pleasure Activism. So it says, sometimes we need it to move really fast, to be about the rush to crash into each other's bodies, to slip to the floor and right there pull off the shirt and tug at the belt, unbuckle the sounds of metal and leather, a cheap promise. And are there buttons, a zipper? Is it lace or boxers or nothing at all?
Is it already wet? Is it hard? Enter me, grab me, fuck me harder than you have ever fucked anyone, anything. Fuck me and call me names. Slick, slit, cunt fucker, goddess. Take my throat and scream my name until it twists and we are at the edge of pain and pleasure and release. Afterward, be dizzy, disoriented. What was that? Who were those people anyway? Sometimes it is fun. There's laughter, and maybe we were drinking a minute before. We are real human bodies here, not pornography, not Hollywood, not magazines, not fantasies. We are bodies in need. We kiss as we undress. We fumble our protection. We have music playing that didn't know the sex was coming. The sheet tangles around your thigh when you try to roll on top of me, and we have to pause, unravel, focus. Or I am getting creative to find a way to ride you, learning to place my foot on the box spring to get leverage for my bad knee. We don't necessarily love each other, but there is desire here. I enjoy your sexual company, your body in my hands. I enjoy what you do to me. I tell you what I need. This is the realm of imperfection, where sometimes your tongue tries to fill my mouth and it makes me move away, but then you press up behind me and I open again, twerking a bit to find the angle that makes both of us feel lucky. We may not come at the same time, but we come and it's wet and breathless. The body is released. We don't talk a lot, or we do, but it doesn't change us much. This works, this sex between us. Sometimes we need it to be a million increments, slower than breath, a year spent with your hand moving up my thigh while my heart pounds, a feeling that my flesh is your favorite feeling and you want to linger in the contact. The appreciation of each layer and angle of this outfit. You unravel and undo me, open me like a cherished gift. Those times you want me to stand there while you look at my body through my clothing, reach under my skirt to wring your fingers along the top edge of my pantyhose, up higher to find the shiver of lace, the heat that waits for you, the heat you don't plunge into but hover before, worshipful. Ooh. Those times when you touch my nipples with the tips of your fingers and tongue until my back arches. Those times when I find the tips of you, fingers, clitoris, cock, with my tongue and lips and stay still, letting you use my mouth. How slowly can you cover this territory? How much can I need this release? Sometimes I have had many releases in the erotic journey before you even see me naked, before you tell me your mouth is watering for me, before I get to feel you inside of me, slowly making me a sea. Okay.
Like,
what?
Yeah, like I just feel like we never talk about sex in this way.
Yes.
And does sex always need to be poetic and like creative? Like, no, but I just feel like this is like something you never see, like talking about it like in this way. And it just made me feel really good. Like, it's like she went through all these different types of sex, like when you want it hard and rough, when you want it soft and like something awkward happens, there's between. Laughter. Yeah, like a release. It's like she really like covered everything, like in my opinion. Yeah. And I just felt so seen by all of this.
Yeah, and that's what success. That's what sex is supposed to feel like. Like, to me, I know we're using the word supposed to. Is it supposed to? Is it not? But like, when sex is good and when I'm relaxed and when I'm in the moment, like, you really kind of like feel in that moment of like, there's tension and there's pleasure and there's awkwardness and there's like heat and cold and like all these different like feelings, like you're like overstimulated.
Right.
But we don't talk about it like that in America, and I feel like it's like the whole pornography conversation, because imagine if like this is the way that we sexted each other.
Bro.
Like my fingers like trace here. Like, I don't
Bro,
know.
I
like
low-key
the way
have had some girls fucking sex me
Like-
like that. I'm not even joking, which I'm like
I
not
need someone too.
not as much into, like, honestly, but like
Yeah.
like in an attempt
Write
to like
a poem in the
yeah, but like in an attempt to like unlearn shame and like learn to love casual sex and like figure out like why we fuck. Like, I just
Yeah.
feel like this is like so inspirational and like revolutionary, because I'm just like,
Yes.
if we reframe how we think about sex and look at it as like a playful dance, like art form. We always talk about like in the strip club, it's like a different environment, like different type of universe, but it's like
Yeah.
when you're having sex or like any form of intimacy with someone, it is like you transcend the like normal reality. Like,
Yeah.
not even just talking about orgasms and like feeling all of those like spiritual scientific things. Like, it's just a different space to be in. And like
Yeah.
people are so like uncomfortable talking about it, but we all do it. And so I don't know. I just feel like looking at it like this, and even maybe over romanticizing it a little bit too, I just think is a good way to discover like what sex is to you, like what it's supposed to be to you and what your relationship with it is.
And being okay in that. Like, I'm trying to find the line where they said it, but it was like something like, maybe we thought about it, like maybe we didn't,
Yes.
but it doesn't matter, like we're in this moment. And like the way
Yes.
that this is written, like it reminds me so much of like
Emerson.
when I was in London. No, like when I was in London and like I had casual sex with like an Italian guy, like a French guy, like I was fucking all over Europe, okay? And I was noticing, like I've definitely had sex with American guys that are like this, but like even though it was like casual sex and we weren't gonna see each other again or it didn't mean anything, like whatever, there was this certain like slowing down, like even if it was like rough sex or messy sex or whatever, like slowing down and like being in the moment and not having that like, because there's always awkwardness, but like the shame factor, like I feel like it is very American to be very like violent with things, or very like rush, straightforward, like you're trying to get to the point of something without like enjoying the process kind of thing, like connecting.
Yes.
And it's like we talk about like, isn't like or French like the romance language, like whatever, like stuff like that. They appreciate like art, culture, food, like those types of things more. Like,
Yeah.
I think it is a very American thing to like look at sex as so degrading and just like something to get off and then throw the other person away, which is like not what sex is. Like if you're looking at it that way and you're going into it and you're framing it that way, you're missing out on this whole experience
Yeah.
of these feelings, you know?
And I honestly think like it's such like, I was so privileged to have the first partner that I did, bro. Like, honestly, like they taught me everything. And like being in poly relationships, you look at sex so much differently anyways, like if that's somewhere in your boundaries. And it's like, I agree with everything you're saying. And like the questions, like, should we take sex seriously? It's like, maybe even if the one night stand was like mediocre or whatever, it's like either it's positive because we could learn from it, or it's like we can find beauty in like the awkwardness and like the release and like pushing against certain objects, like find that like more endearing. And also in here, she was like, we might love each other, we might not, but like this sex is working for us right now. So yeah, it's like more, it's
and
like
it's
enjoying the moment.
Yeah, and it is intentional in a way too, because I feel like sometimes like I've had sex with people where it's like I'm having sex with them either as like a coping mechanism, as something, but it's like I'm not focused on connecting with them. Like I'm almost like in my own head, in my own body, having my own experience, and I'm not like engaged in the fact that like we are like merging right now.
Bro, right?
And we don't have to merge as souls, like we don't have to do any of that, but it's like you are doing a dance together. You are doing this thing together. And it's like if you're like going into that experience like not considering that like you're doing this with another person, like it doesn't mean that you have to like date them or marry them. And like sometimes I think we're afraid too, because we're like, oh, like, am I going to fall in love with them? Oh, is this too vulnerable? Like, oh, da 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 da. But it's like, I don't know. Like, I think it is the best sex when you are like, I'm going into this with this other person. Like, you think, you know, like that feeling.
And I also, like, it makes you feel like so conceited. I'm like, I'm just want to worry about like what I'm doing.
Yeah, I'm
and how I look right now.
But I feel like, because I've heard that said a lot about guys. Like, they're using you to masturbate. And I think that's why I've become that way.
Horrible.
Too. Because honestly, like, the first good amount of people I fucked, like, you're young, you don't know. They're just, guys are going like hard as fuck. They're doing like whatever. And you're just like, oh, this is what it's supposed to like be. Yeah, and so you kind of like, as like, if you're heterosexual or bisexual or whatever, and that's the type of sex you've mostly been having, I feel like you start to put yourself into that mindset of like, oh, it's not a connecting experience. It's about when the guy finishes, or it's about like this individual release. And
oh my God. Yeah. The straight people really have that problem. Like, I've had that problem too. And like not speaking up about it and just being like convincing yourself, no, I really am satisfied when he just uses me to come and then it's over. Like,
and sometimes like
it is like sometimes I'm like, I don't want to work that hard to orgasm, and like this feels really good. Like honestly, and then you feel bad about that because you're like, I'm not a feminist. Like, it's exhausting, bro.
Yeah, because sometimes, like, we were talking about the whole saga of the one night stand. Like, sometimes I'm like, enough of that was fun. Where it's like, I clearly am not gonna come right now. Like, I'm not feeling super like romanticizing like my pussy and the orgasm that is may or may not, probably not gonna happen.
Yeah,
but like, like, you know,
I don't always want to come. Honestly, like sometimes I really don't want to work that hard. Like I just want it to feel good and then it's over. Like sometimes I really don't. But last thing, like me like spiraling about sex and I'm like, all sex should be intentional. There has to be a clear cut fucking reason. It's also like rereading this again now and like thinking about this work. It's like maybe like when there isn't a clear cut reason and it's like we're just like tapped in, because we can't talk about sex without talking about attraction. At the end of the day, like we're animals, whatever. And so it's like, maybe it's like there wasn't a clear cut reason like in my like human brain, but like my body like reacted to this person. And now all of a sudden we're in the bathroom kissing and I didn't even have time to think about it, but I'm really enjoying it. And it's like, maybe that's like one of the most beautiful things.
The beautiful things about being
like
human.
Unsaid. Yeah. Like you just felt that. They felt it and then you collided.
Yeah, because it's like, especially as we're going into, like, we're in such a digital technology disconnected era, AI exists, like, we're losing, like, that, like, connection, that, like, humanness. And again, like, America's so capitalistic, like, to really, like, connect with another person on such, like, a physical level, like, attraction, animalistic level is like a beautiful fucking thing. And like, it does not mean you have to get married or be a couple or see them again or whatever. Like, live in the fucking like moment.
Just take
and like
it what it is. Yeah. Like, don't put too much pressure on it. It's like, that thing that fucking America does. It's like, what? And even it's like bitches today. Like, I'm not trying to be misogynistic, but it's like, okay, well, what are you offering me? Like, what are you doing this?
Yes.
Like, can we just calm down?
Because
it's
like the transactional shit. And it's like, that's like, again, why I don't like to like date guys. That's why I always end up with broke guys that don't have anything to fucking offer me, because I'm not going into it thinking like, what can they give me, da da da. Like, usually, like my ex, we fucked for the first time on cushions in someone else's apartment on the floor off of Xanax. And it was like maybe the best sex of my life, because it was just like, it was so raw, like so in the moment, like so like whatever. It's like, and he had nothing to fucking offer me. Like, am I mad that I ended up in a, like, whatever. Like, things turn out how they turn out, but that's like the human fucking experience, you know?
The best sex of my life was definitely with my first partner, like when we were in Europe together, and like, oh my God. Like, and it was just like, we were on the floor too, like of this weird room and like where we were going to school. And I literally like transcended. So it's like, it doesn't, and that's good. And that's awesome. And like, we should be happy about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But a little bit more art before we talk a little bit more. This is from the chapter and poem, Sex Magic. No one told me to do it. It was the full moon shining in my window. I waited, a wide sea. Moonlight on my thighs, heat on my fingertips. I was a wave, then a million. After I was trembling, writing on a page everything I needed, everything I had to have, what I couldn't die without, what was in my veins. I reached into myself, covered my fingers with yes, my pleasure, my sea slick, wrote my name onto the page, mine, my pleasure, my life would be my pleasure. I buried this note in my bed, planted it under my tongue, in my sheets, on my temples, everywhere my pleasure, everywhere my prayer. So at the end, I was like, well, I don't really resonate with it. Like,
But like, I think like prayer, because like I like using like prayer terminology and like poetry and stuff like that. 'Cause
Right.
It's like to pray to something is like, it's a very high value. Like, I think she's using it in a way that's like, this is her prayer. It's
Yeah.
not like Christianity.
And
like,
that's
kinda
me
thing.
being like, everything about prayer is Christian, America, white
Yeah.
supremacy. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I can't even fucking think that it would be a different culture.
I
You're
think
right.
it's radical that she's like
Right.
using it in that way.
Yeah.
But I was like laughing during the second like stanza where she's like, after I was trembling, writing on a page everything I need to, because bro, like when I got out of like rehab, right, I was journaling every day because you don't have your fucking phone and there's nothing to fucking do.
Right.
And then I got back and this dude that I was seeing like slept over, like I don't remember, like we probably fucked the night before, I don't know, like I woke up early as fuck and I just felt like I had to journal, and he woke up and he was like, what the fuck, like I feel like he looked at me crazy, but it's just like that really is like what it, I mean now I'm like not even journaling like that because I'm not like, I haven't been in rehab and I have my fucking phone, but it's like sex is one of those things, and it's not like because I'm fucking like in love with him or anything like that. It's just like I had like an emotional experience with my body. Like this is like what it feels like to be human. This is what it feels like to be alive. Like I tapped into something else like in myself, and now I need to like release it, like create
Right.
art about it. Like, you know?
Right. And that is like an amazing innate human need. Like that is
Yes.
a beautiful way to fucking cope with things.
Yes.
And I just really liked how it was like my pleasure, mine, my life would be my pleasure, because just another thing I spiral about is like people that I've had sex with transactionally and even intimately, like any type of way. I'm like, did they take something from me? You know what I mean? Because I
Yeah.
used to be like, no, they didn't. No, they didn't. Again, like so far on the other side of like pro sex anytime, anywhere, where it's like I had to believe that, because of course,
Yeah.
like if people are taking things from me, then I don't want to do this anymore. And I do want to be a sex worker and all these things. But I'm like, yeah, it's like, it's mine. Who cares if they're taking something or they're not? Like,
Well,
I'm still, like, this is my pleasure, my experience. Like, I'm whole.
Yeah, and like I think I feel you, because like I think I used to feel like that more like when I would have like one night stands, just fuck a bunch of people, and I was having the type of sex where it was like the guy was just like going like this and I was just kind of like letting it happen and I wasn't actively like doing anything. But I think like in the past like few years, when I've become like more of an like agent of my own pleasure and like actively engaging in it, I think of sex as like, you're blessed to have had the experience of fucking with me. Like, we are fucking each other. Like, you're not fucking me. Like, even if it isn't a degrading way, like, I teased you and brought you here. Like, I am just as much in this. And so if you want to say it that way, like, you're just discounting like me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can't even like take it seriously to think that like you got something out of me, because like, no, bitch, I did that. Like, I did that with you. Like,
Right.
You have no power over me. I wanted to. Like,
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
Like, I did it, not because you forced me to, not because you
Right.
wanted me to,
Not
because
you were
I
so
wanted
smooth
to.
and like da da
Right. It
whatever.
had
Like,
nothing-
usually it's myself. Like, when I think about myself fucking, like, I'm so in love with myself and like
Bro,
how I
like
feel in
maybe
that
too
moment.
much, because I'm like, it's all
Right.
about me, actually.
Yeah, like, it's not like
And
you
it
did.
should be. Yeah.
But like, that's only if like they try to take credit or be like, oh, like I fucked her, like, because
Right.
you know, try to act like you're a slut and da da da.
Yeah, but because it's like that, but also like what you said earlier, which I really liked, is like sex is like, we're connecting, we're both here taking part in things. So like it's
Yes.
a balance, but you do want to center your own pleasure. Like you got to live with yourself the rest of your life. Like you're
Right.
number one. So like
Yeah.
that's what you would do. But I don't know, just thinking more about the question, like, why do we fuck? And it like really is like, maybe I'm just like it's like, and just like life, it's like, this is so corny, but like seeing the beauty and everything, it's like seeing the beauty. It's like maybe we are privileged that we have access to so many different types of sex, and there's not just one way. Like maybe it's great that we all like different things. We can put each other on to like new things and all of that. It's like maybe the best part about sex and like why we're doing it is like not only to discover new things about ourselves and our partners, but also just to like experience all the nuance that comes with it and like what makes life worth living. Like,
and learn about ourselves and our bodies and other people's bodies. Cause like, it makes me again go back to the fucking irony and not taking things seriously, because it's like, why do we act like even if we're not taking it seriously, like again, like you need to procreate, have a baby, like da-da-da. Like we don't think about sex in the like dope, interesting way that it is. Like I was even thinking about that because I was listening to Alana Glazer.
Her stand-up comedy?
No, well, she was talking about it on Drew Offwallow's podcast.
Oh,
and she was talking about like how dope it was that her body could create a fucking baby. Like,
right.
You know what I'm saying?
I
like,
saw
how
that.
dope is it that like I can orgasm? Like, how dope is it that we use our mouths to kiss each other? Like the like connection and the art and that, and not just the like, oh, sex is nothing, it doesn't mean anything. Like,
right.
Like we act like everything's like cringe or it's not that serious or it's like whatever. And even if the sex isn't serious, like it's leading to a relationship, it's still serious in a way where sex is fucking cool and deep, like and intimate. Like I don't know.
And I feel like it's like some of the like my first thought, like what are your most beautiful sexual experiences? I'm like, when I'm with a partner, like I'm in love with them, and then I like feel like Snow White waking up in the morning, like whatever, like dancing around, like I'm a fairy princess. I'm high off life. Like I just fucking came, bitch. Like I'm outside. But also like, cause I was spiraling and like all of that. But now thinking about it too, I'm like, but honestly, like after some one night stands where I was kind of like, yeah, I did that. Like that was pretty crazy, but like that was cool. And like, I enjoyed it. Like that is like kind of beautiful in its own right. Like just learning about myself and like feeling powerful that like, yeah, I did that. You know?
Yeah.
It doesn't need to like be the whole all the time. Yeah.
Right. Because sometimes I will feel shitty the next morning, but like during I feel great.
Like kind of a like bad bitch.
Yeah. And I feel like the shittiness after is not, again, it's like the shame and the unlearning and like all of that stuff. Because it's not, it's like me hating on old me being like, oh, like, was she being a slut? And like everyone else is gonna think she's a slut. But when I think about old me in that brain that was like fucking sucking dick on the tube, like, I don't know, like, I'm just making something up. Like,
right.
That what, like, I felt incredible in that moment.
Right.
So like, I don't know. It's like the perception versus like what it actually is.
Totally. And it's just like, yeah, it's like, and I feel like I've just been focusing so much on the shame aspect because it's like, yes, when we got home from the strip club the next day, like we would be depressed, or like even when I did it by myself, like I was like, fuck, what am I doing? But also I felt like so fucking good, like walking out of there, like, yeah, I just fucked someone in VIP. Yeah, the security guards all saw it on camera. Yeah, everybody, blah, blah. I'm like, but I got money in my bag and like I'm about to go like be with my boyfriend. Like I don't give a fuck. So like that felt good too, but it can't just be that, and it can't just be shame. Like we need to center both because both are here. It's not doomsday and it's not I'm invincible. Like it's somewhere in the middle. In the middle.
Yeah.
Like I ate with that.
So we asked you guys, what's the biggest thing that sex gives you? And 34% of you guys said pleasure for myself and others. 33% said a fun time or a release. 31% said spirituality / deepening a connection. And 2% said procreation.
Wah, wah, wah. Because also it's like, honestly, like procreation is like so fucking straight at the end of the day. Like if you're not straight, how do you relate to that? But also it's like on the L Word, like one time, like when these two lesbians were trying to get pregnant, like they had the sperm sample and they like had sex and she inserted it. And like, maybe it's like, oh, it's someone else's sperm, but like, no, that's hot. So I don't know. Like,
I low key have like a cum slut. Is it a cum slut fetish? Like, I love when they like come inside me, like that feeling.
I do too.
At the same time. So it's like, yeah, I get that.
But I
like,
think objectively, their cum, like when I'm watching porn and like they're like all coming on her face, like whatever, I'm like, turn it off. Like that looks gross to me. But when it's inside
when it's
my
happening
pussy
to me,
or
though,
my
I
mouth,
don't mind on my face.
No, I mean I've got it on my face. I've got it all over. But I'm just
watching it, I'm kind of like,
yeah, like it's too much on porn sometimes.
Yeah,
I'm like, bro, that's
because porn, I just don't believe it.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
I'm just going on a
buy
sidetrack. But anyways, I feel like what's the biggest thing? Like, I don't know, bro. Like, honestly, like it kind of is a release, but it also is pleasure for myself and others. Like, I love to feel good. And I love for someone to make me feel good and for them to feel good.
Yeah,
too.
and that's kind of like they're kind of connected because like it like a fun time is pleasure, like a release. I feel like for me it's definitely a fun time and a release because like everything else wraps into that.
Right. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay,
you know, like for me, it's like an activity. Like it's like a hobby. Like it's like what am I want to do when I had a stressful week? Like that SZA song where she's like, I could have called my mom. I'd rather fuck about it. Like I would, you know what I'm saying? Like whether you're in a relationship or you're single, usually I convince myself against
so real.
Yes. Right. Like I just want to release from something. I don't know if that's always a good thing,
but we're learning to accept it all.
Exactly.
So real quick, if you guys are liking the conversation, make sure you do subscribe or follow whatever platform you're listening on. We're so close to 1,000 on YouTube. So please subscribe, like the video, keep the conversation going. We post polls over on our Instagram every single week for upcoming episodes. So make sure you're following so you can be a part of that. We really want you to be a part of that. All right. So real quick, I want us to talk about a little bit about boundaries and more so like, you know, like you and I have talked about this a lot. Like that when you're like having sex and you're kind of like, do I want this? I don't know. But like, let's just get it over with and like do it. Like, I feel like it's not a big deal. Like, let's just do it. And like that wishy-washy shit. Cause like, I'm just like, part of me is like, it's fine. Like what, you know what I mean? Like sex is weird, like whatever. But then part of me is like, maybe like my sex life would be more fulfilling if like I was more intentional. And so I think both things are true. But this one sentence from the chapter, Strategic Celibacy and Pleasure Activism, they say, but I think we all need to ask ourselves, have I been complicit in continuing harmful patterns of sex that blur the line? And like, I definitely think I like have, you know, like I am complicit in that. I'm just like, whatever, but just rethinking it, I'm like, I don't know, comment below if you guys feel that way too, like what we're talking about. It's like when you're just having sex and like maybe it's almost over and you kind of want it to stop, but you're like, oh, they're about to come, like we'll just finish. Like, what is that? Like, what is that to you guys? What is that to you? I don't know.
Yeah, same, because I don't think I've ever been like, I know, I feel like I've had moments, usually I'm just like, let me just like get it over with, like whatever, like it's just gonna be what it is. I feel like sometimes like it'll also be like, I'm into the foreplay or I'm into the like, the journey, the makeout session, the da-da-da, whatever, and then like, I don't really want to have sex, but I'm like, oh, well, we're already here. Like, it just makes sense as the next step.
Yeah.
And like, for me, what helped before that I'm not doing now, but like when I was celibate, like, I think that really helped me because like I was still going out and like making out with people and like flirting or whatever. But like, because I think it's a boundary like with myself because I'm really bad at like stopping things, and it's not like about the other person ever. It's about like myself, and it's about me like listening to myself and like me like and with everything. I'm the same with drugs, I'm the same with alcohol, I'm the same with like, I don't know when to stop. Like I will just keep going and like not think about how I'm gonna feel after because I'm just like, I always think there's gonna be something better. Like, you know, when you're scrolling, you can't stop scrolling on TikTok. So like, and I've talked about that with my therapist, like, but at the same time, like, I don't think I beat myself up about it, but I have noticed, and I think I've gotten a little bit better, not really, just being like, okay, like, even though I've had a lot of sex in my life, and at one point it stopped being special or like exclusive to an extent, so it doesn't feel like a big deal when I fuck someone all the time because I'm just like, I'm in this moment, I'm doing whatever. And like some people might say I'm a whore. I don't really give a fuck what you say. Like to me, that's fine. But like, I do think for me, I need to be better at knowing when it's supposed to stop at foreplay
Yeah.
and when it's supposed
Yeah.
to keep going.
And not to feel bad about it, but just
Yeah.
like clock.
Listen to yourself.
Yeah, just clock that and be like, yeah, like I need to work on that a little bit. Like nobody's dying, like everything's fine.
Right.
Because it's like you have Me Too culture like screaming at you, like enthusiastic consent. You have to be like, yes, yes, like screaming yes the whole
Yeah.
fucking time. But I'm like, sometimes when I'm having sex, like it's not that I want to or I don't. Like I'm down, I'm like indifferent. And then it's like, okay, are you like dissociating? Like, but I don't think it's always like trauma drama. Like I think it's just like sex is weird. Like sometimes it's just like, maybe I'm not like so down, but like I'm a little down and like, yeah, whatever, you know? Like,
and I think that's such a good point because I feel like especially as women and Me Too culture and all of that stuff, like there's this big focus on like, you know, consent, like you said, like saying no and like the pressure we feel from men and all of that. And I think that is definitely real. I don't want to discount that at all. Like the fear of saying no because you're afraid of how the other person is going to react.
Yes.
But like for me, it's rarely ever been that, and it's always myself. Like it is not them, because it's like at the end of the day, like I think I would be fine telling this person like you're driving too fast or I don't want to take that drug or like you know what I'm saying? Like I can speak up about whatever. It's not that.
Yeah.
It's just that like I'm just like fuck it. Like,
right. I feel like there were like sometimes like when I was a sex worker that I was afraid to speak up and say like if something hurts or this is wrong because I was getting paid and I felt like this is what the client wants. Like y'all can hate on me, but that's what it felt like. I'm giving a presentation right now. Like
it's going to be over.
So there were some times, but in my outside of work sex life, like I've never felt like I can't say no. Like I like so lucky and privileged to feel like that. But what you're saying, yes, it's been me. Like I'm not like connecting like my mind with my pussy enough. Like those two bitches are like, they don't even know each other, honestly. So I'm just like, that's what I need to work on. Just what you're saying is like to be thinking while in my spiritual sexual energy. But it's like a weird thing, but I'm just done feeling shame about it. Like I feel like it is what it is. Like sex is weird. Like you're not always going to be enthusiastic. Yes. Like I like, and yeah, not to discount any of that. Like that is so important. And like I said, like when I was a sex worker, like I do know what it feels like to be afraid to say no, but like, yeah, like with the other shit, when it's not that, it's like, I'm done feeling shame about it. We just need to work through it. Like sex is weird. We're good, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about what's wet about casual sex and what is dry about casual sex. So from the chapter, The Highs, Lows, and Blows of Casual Sex from Pleasure Activism, one person said, like, basically the best thing about casual sex is, like, identifying a specific want or desire and it being finite, like, definite.
Finite.
What the fuck is that? Like, I thought it was, like...
Infinite is it forever. Finite is, like, right this
now.
Is it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, so it's, like, and I, like, feel that, too. Like, I feel like there's a lot of power in, like, no expectations are coming with this sex. Like what you were saying, like in American society, it's always like, what's the point? What are we doing? But it's like, that's something really wet to me about a one night stand is like, there is no expectations. Like you just met for the first time.
Yeah.
And like, this is a beautiful thing, you know?
Yeah.
And someone else said, with the right person, it's a sexual experience purely focused on pleasure. I know we'd like to say all sex should be focused on pleasure. It should be, but sometimes it's not. And relationship dynamics are being worked out, or you are like mad about the dishes or something. And casual sex is a space where you don't confuse emotional intimacy with the desire to get off. So I think this person's just talking about how like in relationships, like you can't really separate your sex from like the argument you just had or like whatever's going on in that relationship. Like there might be a block because something's happening emotionally. So your sex is like lacking.
Yeah.
But like with a one night stand, again, it's like you don't know this person. There's none of that. So it's like you're able to be like, and I'm so good at being like, this is what I want. This is what turns me on. This is what I don't want you to do. Yeah. Especially with the one night stand. Cause I'm like, bitch, like I'm only doing this like to get off, like at the end of the day, like maybe I'll like you, maybe I won't, but that's not why we're fucking right now. So.
Right. Yeah. And I'm very good about that too. Like, not as much like telling them exactly what they want, because I feel like usually the type of like I like to feel in the moment and see where it's going and then go from there. But like, I'm very good about being like, this doesn't mean anything. Or like, this does not mean I want you, or like whatever. Like, even if I fuck you like I'm in love with you, like that's not what this means, kind of thing. Like, and I think like it's nice to establish that, and or because like with a one night stand, exactly, a one night stand or casual sex with someone that you're seeing like more consistently, it's like you don't have the added pressure of like, I don't know, consistency.
Again, like in our society, it's like hookup culture, like have casual sex as much as you want. And like, I just don't know how I feel about that. Like, if I want to personally do that, like I know I'm okay with that, but I'm just like, I don't want to be rigid and take a stance anymore, period, on like what casual sex is and like hooking up with whoever, whenever. I'm like, let's just like let it see what happens. You know what I mean? Like I'm coming from being really matrixy about sex to now being like almost like not hippie, but like I'm just like I feel like we just need to work with the ebbs and flows. But like I think casual sex is wet. Like the way we talked about it, like with that poetry like essay, like it's just it really is so beautiful to me, and I'm really wet about it.
Yeah, same, because it's like less pressure and it feels good, and like same. Like I don't feel like right now I'm not pressed to have like any sort of like casual sex, like dating, like any of that, but it's like with the right person, with the right night out, with the right situation, like, yes, I'm down. Like, you know, like, I'm not going to be like, oh, they need to buy me a dinner and they need to do this and they need to do that. And I only want to have this type of, like, again, that's too scientific. It's not fun. It's too structured. Like, I want to go with the flow.
Right.
And that's what makes me wet about it. So, like,
It's like, I'm not pressed, but I would be really happy if it happened soon. Honestly, not going to lie. So... Now, just what's dry about casual sex. So, like, this is kind of interesting. Like, this is a little, like, feminist territory. I'll just read it real quick. So, someone said the worst thing is the social shame and stigma around it. You feel like you can't be honest about not wanting to have a deep emotional relationship with someone. A lot of times the sex is better, especially for women, when there isn't this whole committed relationship wrapped around it. I feel like men are allowed to have one night stands, but women aren't, because we're supposed to take care of people all the time. So, of course, we want this continuous relationship where we are emotionally invested in the other person's life. And honestly, for a lot of women that I know, casual sex is a place where we get to be served and cared for physically. Like a one night stand, I get to say what I want and how I want it, just like we were saying. And then she was saying in some ways, like she feels like she gets to be in more control. And for this, like, I just feel like if it's a healthy relationship, like it shouldn't be like one night stands are like the only way that you can like feel in control and like do what you want. So like I didn't know how I felt about this. Like I do agree that like because of our society and patriarchy and like unfortunately a lot of women in tragic straight relationships, like that's why they like cheat and like, you know, this guy treats them good and their husband treats them like shit. But I'm like, that's just not where I'm at in my life right now.
Yeah.
But I do feel like, yes, of course, like I'm definitely dry about the one night stands, like having the stigma of like you're a whore and like whatever, when like we could be looking at it in like a playful, artistic way, like we've said. So.
Yeah, I feel like I do relate to this more, because I feel
like, good, babe.
And I think this is why most of the relationships that I've gotten into have started with like fucking and then ended up as a relationship, because I think for me, like, I don't know, like that, what a man is providing in sex and that comfort and that like care and that pleasure and all of that, like, is, I think, unique in a casual relationship versus a serious intimate relationship, because in the relationships that I've been in, everything ends up falling on me as the woman. You know what I'm saying? Like they slowly become more irresponsible, less taking care of things. Like I'm the responsible one. Everything is in my head. I'm taking care of everything. And when it's casual and I don't need to worry about if you're keeping your job, if you did your laundry, if you took the dog out, how your mood is today, then like I can let you take care of me in this moment. Which is why I think sex in the long-term relationships that I've been in, like, started out amazing and then like got worse, especially if we lived together, because it was just like I don't trust you to be like the person that I'm like giving full control of my body, like being submissive to, because like I can't trust you to like, you know, like go work your job, you know, like
Right.
it's too interconnected versus like if it's casual and like I don't have that like relationship where like we're a unit, then
Right.
like you're just showing up as this, that's all you're for, and like I can release that to you.
Right.
You know?
No, like, yeah, that totally makes a lot more sense too. I feel like it's just like, for me, just like being mostly in queer relationships, it's just like that's not something I can relate to as much, because it's almost
Yeah.
like a privilege to be like, oh, if it's a healthy relationship. But it's like, yeah, but like to an extent, like straight people dating, like in this culture, like it's impossible to just like not have that issue. Like,
Yeah,
and
because
not saying like,
weaponized incompetence and like
right.
all
It's like,
that
it's
stuff.
very real. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it's almost like in casual sex, I almost feel like it's buying into the fantasy of like, if you're having sex with a man in a heterosexual sex, it's almost buying into the fantasy of like masculinity and men and like whatever, because like,
Yeah.
you know, like he shows up for you in that way and not, you don't have that connection. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rough. It really is. Like, obviously, it's rough for LGBT plus people, but I just feel like the state of relationship sex for straight people right now is just like one of for the ages. Like, it's just
Yeah.
wild. But the last thing I'll say is like just dry that it does, like, one night stands like do come with shame sometimes because of the societal pressures, like you were
Yes.
saying. Like, I don't feel bad about it because like me and like my Autumn brain and soul feels a certain way. It's because of like all the ideas projected onto me. But it's like,
Yes.
so it's like, and you've kind of taught me that, like when you've said that, because it's hard to distinguish that. Like, it feels like you just do feel bad because you
Yeah.
feel that way about yourself and like other women that fuck all the time or whatever, but you don't. Like, that's what like ingrained shit is. Like, it just happens and then it tricks you. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's about like zooming out and like knowing yourself, because it's like even how I'm describing like casual sex with another guy, like buying into the fantasy, like letting him take care of you, give you pleasure, like whatever. It can, if you decide to look at it as the general society way looks at women with casual sex, you'd be looking at it from a lens of like, oh, I'm easy. I'm a slut. He's getting what he wants and I'm getting nothing out of this. But it's about like you putting yourself and having that intention of being like, no, this is like what I want, and choosing the right partner that is also going to respect you. Not that like every
Right.
one night stand has to, because
Yeah.
again, like it's a one night stand, like you're not going to see them again. But like if you're fucking someone casually more consistently, or like if you do have the ability to get to know that like on
Yeah.
a deeper level before you fuck them, like that kind of like framing of mindset, like I would feel shame if I knew I fucked a guy who was like a Trump supporter and an Andrew Tate dude. Like, you know, like that I don't want to do.
Yeah,
but like
that's different
and
and
sometimes
real.
you can't control, like,
Right.
you don't know that.
Or
like,
whatever.
I don't
mean,
know.
it's like, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know.
I used to
Like-
say that too, but it's like, nah, bitch, you fucked
But,
up.
like, you can ask it. Like, I feel like it's the signifiers for that shit come up
Yeah.
pretty quickly.
Right.
And you can know.
But I really do feel like I unlocked something where it's like, to combat all this shame, it's like I just like want to know my relationship with sex like so clearly, because I don't think I'd feel as bad if I made like a quote unquote bad decision that's not even really a bad decision. I'd be like, oh, well, like this is something that like sex gives me, or this is something unhealthy that I do about sex. So like that makes sense that I did that, and like I'll think about it later and figure out if we want to do it again or if we don't. Like,
Right.
I just feel like I really want to like get intimate with myself. And like, I listened to this episode too. Like, I didn't put it in the outline about like sex shadow work. And like, I just feel like that's a really cool idea too. Like, shadow work is like things you don't really want to talk about. You like bury it in your mind or whatever. But I just feel like, you know, and we've talked a lot about on this podcast, like, can you ever really feel like sexually liberated? And like, I just feel like defining like my own relationship with sex based on like the experiences I've had and like how I'd grown up and what I've been through. Like, I just want that to be so clear to myself. Because I also want to be an intimacy coordinator someday, and I don't even know what sex is, bitch. Like, I do.
Yeah.
Like, I'm being dramatic, but I just
But
like,
it's about your connection to, because
Yeah.
and I feel that, because it's like, how else you can read all you want, but like how else are you gonna learn about this stuff without fucking doing it? And it's like, okay, like you go out, you have a one night stand. Like I remember one time I was talking to a friend from my hometown, and she was like, oh yeah, when you gave that dude roadhead, and I was like, I did not recall this at all. But like something like that, where it's like, I probably didn't feel great after that situation.
Yeah.
But do I love giving roadhead? Yes. So what am I going to take from that situation?
Same.
Which is what I did because I didn't fucking remember it. Is that, oh, I like to give roadhead. Not to this guy or like in this situation, but like that is something that I know to do with the next person. So like, what am I learning? Okay, like I don't like this. This is something that turns me on and is going to cause me to do this. This is something like where I need to draw the line. Like this is what I'm learning about myself.
Right, exactly. And it's also like just feeling shame about like, and we're about to get into post-sex shame. We're basically in it right now. But like feeling like shame about like a one night stand, casual sex, because like the sex was mediocre. Like, bitch, we're not fucking mind readers. And that's what makes sex so special is that like, it's not always like fucking perfect.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like you're gonna have shitty sex sometimes. And that's what makes like the good sex like so special and all of that. So rather than like shame yourself because it didn't work out, like y'all weren't aligned, like who fucking cares? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's okay if you do care, but like work through that.
Yeah, and you can't help if their dick was trash or if they kissed weird or like fuck, like it is like as much as you can have the best connection with yourself and you can be like, they did this thing to turn me on, they did this, everything was going great, and then you get to something else and it's them. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't, like, you are engaging in something with another person.
Right.
And then, like, when you zoom out after in the shame part that we're about to talk about, it's like, now you've zoomed out of just in your own body and with the person you're engaging with, and now you're looking at the broader society, and it's almost like you're like, you know when you're laying in bed like after like a drunk night or a one night stand and you're just like feeling like the world is like imploding
like
on you,
us
and it's like
on New Year's
other
Day.
it's like other people's eyes, other people's perceptions, you're questioning yourself, like you're like da 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 da, but it's like no, like listen, you know what I'm saying, listen to yourself.
I know.
But
so like I just said, like I recently had an experience where I felt really like a lot of shame after I had sex. And like, so I looked up like, you know, like, is there like whatever. And so like, I'm not saying like I have this or anything, but I didn't even know this term existed like at all.
I had looked this up too.
Okay.
Because I like oppositely.
Like I'm not diagnosing
dysphoria.
myself. Yeah.
No, but I feel like, strangely, I have this feeling really, really bad after a really good orgasm, usually with someone that I love.
Well, we're going to talk about some biology in a second, but basically postcoital dysphoria. Yeah, PCD is a condition that causes feelings of sadness, irritability, anxiety, or depression after consensual sexual activity, is also known as post-sex blues or postcoital. All right, no, we're not.
Tree stace.
Yeah, what the fuck? But obviously, like, there's a lot of reasons you can feel shame after sex. Like, there's hormones, there's past sexual trauma, difficulties in relationships, mental health, insecurities, all of that. But also, it's like maybe it was just shitty sex, or you just felt sad because, like, we're humans and we have emotions. Like, maybe it's not always that deep because, like,
maybe you need a Snickers. Like,
right?
Maybe you need to eat.
Like I like feel like. Even like with my post-sex shame that I recently had, it's like maybe I was just like sad for other reasons, and I feel like I should be sad because I haven't had sex in a long time, and like I've had more transactional sex than like sex I was like not like doing that for, like, but I'm like, maybe it wasn't even that deep. Like I do feel like we do have kind of this like trauma drama culture where it's like your first thought is like, oh, it's because I have clinical depression.
I need to change my whole life immediately.
Right. Yeah, but it's like maybe it's not always that deep. And like now looking back, like I don't feel, I still kind of do feel shame about that sex, but not again, not because of him, not because the sex was bad, just because I wasn't acting in that like agency mindset. I was like very complicit in what was going on. I just felt like whatever. Like, I don't know.
And maybe it's a like dissociation from yourself too, right? Because like you were acting in a way that you thought was gonna make you feel good, but it didn't make you feel good. So it's like,
so I was like,
do
whoops.
I know myself?
Yeah.
Can I trust myself? Like kind of situation.
But it's like, it's not that deep. Like, I'm like, that's fine. Like, that's like normal. Like, you haven't fucked anyone in a year and a half. And then you did it in a parking lot where like everyone could see. Like, I'm like, yeah, like that's going to impact you a little bit because you used to be on that shit, like exhibitionism, like having sex wherever with partners and with one night stands. But like, it's been a minute. So like, maybe it's just because I was celibate for a while. Maybe it's not always about sex work trauma or like insecurities. Like maybe it's literally just that. And so I don't know. I'm just trying to like tone it all down because like I feel like it all feels dark for everyone. But anyways, so we do have one TikTok, and this is kind of like the biology aspect. She's technically talking about post-orgasm shame, like specifically not post-sex shame, but like the orgasm. But I think it still applies with sex that you don't orgasm too. Like you still feel those emotions. So we're going to watch a little bit.
And a big part of it is really biology, because as you go through the sexual response cycle, which in the beginning, it's 5 phases: desire, arousal, plateau, and then you peak at your O, and then you drop off into the refractory period, resolution period. But to simplify that even further, it's the beginning part where you're getting more and more excited and aroused. You peak, and then that all drops. So you are feeling not as good as you were feeling when you were getting aroused and when you were coming. But the other part of it is just straight up shame that has to deal with the way that we view sex as society as a whole.
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense to me. And I feel like especially when I'm masturbating with like kinks like CNC or like domestic violence, like I don't know, like those types of stuff, like I'll like come to it and then feel really bad after because I'm like, what the fuck? But like how she's talking about that rise up to orgasm and then the come down, like what I think of a lot. And like lately, like obviously guys, like I'm thinking about my relationship to addiction. Like I'm quitting cigarettes, like I'm dry January. Like I like had a time period in my life where I do think I was like very addicted to like certain drugs and stuff like that. And like that's very much like what a lot of highs are like, right? Like you feel fucking amazing and on top of the world. And I remember like times in my life where I was spending like 3 days in the fucking dark, like not eating because I was like come down so bad because the high was so good. And it's just like, you like once you realize that it's happening and you can acknowledge like, oh, this is like a natural response. This is my body. This is whatever. Like you can not like spiral about like, why do I feel like such shit right now? Like this is a natural thing. Like obviously I just reached a peak. I'm going to go to a low. And even if I'm not at a low, I'm at a stable, it's going to feel lower because I was just at this peak.
Right.
But also like with certain things like sex and how I look at like drugs, alcohol, all of that stuff, like sometimes what I'm trying to ask myself is like, is it worth how I'm going to feel after? Like, cause I know like, and it's like the bipolar too, because like the mania, like it, like I know, like I'm always chasing that high, like that, like great feeling, that adrenaline rush, the amazing, like whatever. But like, am I going to be able to deal with the low, or am I going to be able to like come back down? And I think I've spent so much of my life being in these ups and downs that like, I'm like, okay, like I'm just going to wait for it to, I think I've gotten a lot better at like waiting for it to pass, which is like, good. Like you said, sometimes it's not that deep. You need to like relax for a second and be like, obviously, like I just orgasmed. This was intense. Like I'm going to like plateau, like go back to stable ground. But other times it's like, was it worth that like big jump? Like, am I in a stable enough place just in general? Because I think like when I'm really stressed with work and all this stuff, like I want that release of that like adrenaline, like feel really fucking good. But then you're going to feel like shit after. And sometimes that really good is not worth that really shit. And maybe I just need to keep the line. I don't know.
And I just feel like it's so corny. Like all my fucking life, my mom's like, think about the consequences. And I'm just like, sometimes it's like, yeah, I agree. Like I live way too hard in the present moment and I would do anything. I'm doing anything but thinking about.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm just like, that's why I do want to practice, not every single time, but like more intentional sex, like really being in tune with myself. Like, do I want this right now? How do I want it? How am I going to feel after? Am I going to be okay with not knowing, because how are you really going to feel? How are you really going to know what you're going to feel after? Like sometimes it's like, I don't, even with like amazing sex with your partner, it's like you still come down. And it's like, yeah, as soon as I saw that TikTok, I was like, oh, it's like Molly. Because that's like, it wouldn't be, the orgasm wouldn't be so amazing if like that's not something if you feel. Right. So it's like you have to come down from that because you're not feeling that anymore, which was so good. It was like life changing. It's like sex is so powerful in like bad ways and good ways. Like it can make you feel amazing and also really bad. Like it is something like so special. I almost said it was sacred, but like, you know what I mean?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. But I also like one more thing I think about too is like sometimes I'm like, I like messy sex. Like when we were in that parking garage and that security guard was like, y'all need to go, like that's happened to me.
It's a cage.
Y'all need to go back in your car. I was like, yeah, totally. Like we're going. And like, I like messy sex, but then I get in my head, I'm like, do I even trust myself? Like, cause I'm so clouded from like outside forces. And like, I do like, I'm like, yes, I do like it. But then you spiral and I'm like, how do I even trust what I'm saying?
I think I've been feeling like that a lot lately too, which is why I think I'm like in this weird like micromanage my lifetime where I'm quitting shit and I'm like working and I'm staying busy. Because ever since I got the bipolar diagnosis, which makes sense, like, and I learned about it more, I cannot stop thinking about, am I just manic? Or am I like just depressed? Like, you know what I'm saying? And like also when like alcohol is involved and stuff like that, like I like I don't give a fuck. I just want to feel good in this moment. And like also thinking about yourself as a concept as like mentally ill, like what's my personality, what's not. And then like,
yeah, no,
you know, but it's too much.
It's
and sometimes
too
I'm
much.
just I'm unmedicated right now. And I'm like, bro, like, do I want to be? I don't know. I love feeling highs and lows at the same time though.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to beat myself up about that feeling like you're talking about, like you being in that moment and like loving it and like feeling like fucking great. And then when you're later,
I was like, I literally am under the grass, like dirt.
But I feel like that's just like, again, like, bro,
like that's like
human.
The beauty of it, right?
But even when you're having sex with like a partner that you love, have you ever had like moments where you're like thinking about, like, obviously it was like good sex, it's your partner, but like you think back later when you're not having the sex and you're like, why did I say that? Or like, what was I doing? Like, did I look weird? You know what I'm saying? So it's like but no, you were in that moment.
Or it's like, for me, it's like, because I used to make videos like with one of my partner and I watch them back, I'm like, okay. Yes. Sometimes I'm like, you really thought you ate with that, but I don't know, bitch. I don't know.
Like you felt
but
sexy,
whatever.
But you weren't looking at it.
Yeah, like it wasn't, it was raw. Like it wasn't planned. Like, yeah, it's like things. So yes, I absolutely.
But exactly. But like we live in such a manufactured like world where it's like maybe we're just not like used to seeing that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like we like, again, not to get like matrixy or like online, like Gen Z, but like we are like manicuring every aspect of each other's lives that we see. Like the fucking Hillary Clinton. I don't know why I said Hillary Clinton. Not even Hillary Clinton. Like who's like a conservative, like Quaker woman, not Quaker, Mormon. Like like the Mormon wives. Like, you know that reality TV show?
Yes.
Like, they could be fucking sluts. Like some of these senators that are conservative are low-key drag queens on the weekends. Like people have secret lives, crazy kinks. Like there's so much going on underground that we don't know about. And like, I don't know, like I just refuse to believe that like everyone else isn't dealing with the same shit.
No, it's just like what we said at the beginning. It's like no one talks about it. They absolutely are dealing with the same shit. Like think about fucking like
we're fucking people too. Like, are they feeling like this the next day?
Right. Wait.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, like the people that we fuck.
Fucked, yeah.
No, definitely not. I feel like, especially if it's a man.
I bet they are. Because I've definitely had men that I've had one night stands
I forgot they were there.
And then I've like ghosted them. Right? I've like ghosted them or whatever, and they're like spiraling in my messages. Like, you know what I'm saying?
No, like I low-key spiraled too after that one night stand. I was like, did I leave my pink cat ears in? Like, I honestly want those. Like, do you still have those? Like, whatever. And he's all like, I'll keep it safe. Like, when are we going to hang out next? And I'm like, I don't live here, bro.
Never.
Yeah. And then just never talk to them again. But like, honestly, it's like, I really did like him in that moment. I was like, you're giving boyfriend, like, you're not that sexy, but like, that's why you're like giving boyfriends. Like, we're like in love, so I don't care. Like, I don't
Yeah, bro. I was taking fucking videos in the back of that Uber with that dude. Like, we're literally, I was telling everyone at the bar, yeah, we've been together 3 years. Like, I was creating a fantasy.
Fun. That is literally so fun.
Like,
and I'm just like, it brings me back to like, why do we fuck? And it's like, for this shit, you know?
Yes.
It's like, that's why we do it. Because we can literally do whatever we want. And like, sex, you wouldn't look back and be like, why the fuck did I do that? Whatever. Because it's like play. Like, sex is play. Like, you're trying new
And think
things.
about how many people are in married relationships that talk about how their sex life died 20 years ago.
At like damn near 80% of the straight population. And also like lesbians, like lesbian bed death is a thing. It's like, honestly, any long-term couple, if you're gonna like fuck forever and keep it interesting, like that's a challenge. Like that is, like, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't. That absolutely is. But like, it's, I used to be like, it's not possible, bitch, like in my polyamorous days. But it absolutely is possible.
Polyamory, yeah. Because
then you can keep it
But like,
exciting.
I've lived with a partner and I'm like, bro, like, it's, I don't know, like, we might need to have separate bedrooms
right.
if I ever
and
end
even
up in
like,
a long term. With
my ex-boyfriend, like, he was like, at one point we were like, yeah, like, we need to switch it up, like, whatever. It's like, you always have sex in like the same bed, but then you like go out one night and like have sex like in the alleyway, and it's literally like brand new. Yes. So it's like, there are ways and like all that shit. But yeah, let's get into our wrap-up segment. And I want us to think about like finding the love for like all things sex, like casual sex, spur of the moment, where it wasn't like planned, and you know, the nuances of that, like if we should take sex seriously, but mostly just like why we fuck, like wets and dries, like wrapping it all up. So to start us off, like I definitely want to say everything I said at the beginning of this episode like really came from the heart, and like I'm really wet on just realizing like, you know, sex doesn't need to be serious all the time, and like there is no said specific purpose for it. Like the point is to discover your own relationship and learn how to appreciate the nuances, and like look at sex like it's just like a time for you to like express yourself. And like unfortunately expressing yourself comes with like making bad decisions and like having consequences sometimes, but like that's the only way that you could learn. And I'm lucky that I'm spiraling about it when I'm 26 years old and like actually like asking these questions. Like a lot of women go their whole life and like never unpack their sex shit, and I'm over here like on the clocked in every single day, like unpacking and like thinking about it. So it's like, honestly, it's like that's a privilege, and like that's a good thing. And like I'm wet about the whole spiral because it brought me to this moment of being like, why do we fuck? Well, for a million different reasons. Like it's really just like, and our culture is really having a moment of like, you're either on the left or the right with everything, whether it's politics, sex, like relationships, like being hateful towards people. Like, it's just like, it's crazy.
Where do you stand?
And it's like, I've leaned more towards like sex positive, like pro sex work, intersectional feminism. And I recently watched a TikTok from a Black woman that was like, white people centering sex positivity and their feminism is an act of privilege, because like I need to center like racism because I'm a Black woman. So I'm also like, there's that. Yeah. But I'm also like I've aligned more with that, and I've been just like, free the nipple, like grow armpit hair, like what the fuck, like so far on that side. And I was happy, but it's like, it's not rigid and it's not permanent. Like if I want to go the other way and be like, well, maybe like fucking nonstop and anyone, whoever, like doesn't make me feel empowered anymore. But that doesn't mean one night stands can't, and like all these other things. It's like, just what about learning that like it's okay to change? Like, and it's not a bad thing to be like, I'm not going to scream about, like pro sex work and sex positivity are two different things. Like I am going to still scream about being pro sex work, but like sex positivity and all that, I'm like, I just want to critique it a little bit more and not be against it. Like, it's definitely still closer to that side. Like, damn,
Right.
you're on it. But
Right.
just like middle ground, like we don't need
Yeah.
to copy and paste what like other shit is looking like. But yeah, so I'm just wet about figuring it all out. Like, I'm excited to fuck soon, hopefully.
Hey.
I'll let you guys keep you posted.
I love, yeah, it's about being like mutable about it, like nuance, like it's flexible, like your mind can change, like we're supposed to grow. Like, I'm really what about like my relationship to sex adapting and changing and seeing the beauty and everything. And like that passage that we read from Pleasure Activism, like it just sums up like really how I feel
knew you
about
would love
sex.
that.
And like sometimes it does feel very like lonely and like shameful, and which is why I was getting like low-key nervous, guys, when Autumn was spiraling, because I'm like, you are the bitch that I know that feels like a lot of
so
the
if
same ways
you're
so like what the fuck, like don't leave me out here.
I know.
Like, you know, because
I
like,
apologize to Fiji in like a manic voice note also when I like finally clicked.
yeah, because I think that's why we do these episodes sometimes too, to learn about ourselves and like or answer these questions like for ourselves, because we don't always know. Like, we're really like Carrie Bradshaw with it, like Sex in the City, like what is going on? Like, I'm living and finding the answers. But
Right.
yeah, I'm definitely like very wet, like about just sex in general. Like, it's human, it's natural. We can change our minds. We can grow from experiences. Like, we'll feel shame. That is a human response, but we don't have to sit in it. We can do something about it. Like, we can connect with other people. We can be more sincere. We can know our boundaries. Like, I'm very wet about like also realizing that like all of that is in my power, because I think when I was like younger, I looked at it as like, oh, the world is this fucked up place and I'm this young stripper who no one understands because I'm just such a sexual spirit. So I'll be doomed
Literally,
forever.
that was like our like if that was a movie, that would be our line of like what we were
just
doing.
like feeling bad for ourselves because we're like, we're different and we have different perspectives and the world will never get it. And it's like, okay, well, bitch, like, one, we want to help the world get it. Obviously, we have a fucking podcast, but like, I don't want to just think about all the negative all the time. I want to create my own reality, create my own world, like surround myself with people or invite people in, call people in to think about things differently.
And it's,
yeah. No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Are you
no,
done?
go. No, I didn't have anything. Yeah, go.
Yeah, no, like, because it's just like, I feel like I've been about this with so much in my life, like copy and paste, like someone's style, like maybe if they're into this, like, oh, that looks cool. It's like being able to like create your own thought. And I've embraced that so much more, like once I went to college and like all of those things. But like, that's what this just reminds me of. It's like, you see like all this sex positivity, like loud as fuck, and then all this negative shit, like you should wait till you're married, whatever. And you just feel like you have to pick one, but it's like, you know, really
what I
don't.
think it is though with you specifically, and why sometimes I think it's because you're an earth sign. Like, you're a Taurus, you know what I'm saying? So you're very grounded, earthy, like you're putting your stake in the ground and you know this stake and you're fucking comfortable.
And it would, and then when it changes and it's maybe
you're
not
like,
that.
where's the ground? Like, where the fuck is the earth? Versus like, I'm a water side, so I'm just like swimming on the water. Like, you know what I'm saying? But it's like, what is your big three again? You have Capricorn and then you're Sagittarius, which is the archer, which is like more fire. Like you've got that like mutable energy, like whatever. But we're growing, like, we're changing.
Right, exactly. I'm just like, but thank you for saying that, because it really does feel like that. Like, it's just like, and sex is such a big idea, and that leads me into my dry. It's like the most dry thing about this whole thing is that like none of this would be happening if like our society and culture like looked at sex differently, you know, and like definitely dry for like all the people growing up that like felt like they couldn't talk about it, and like people that are married now and like old and like have never talked about it. Like, it makes me really dry, and it's like, it's fun for me to talk about and think about, even if I'm like thinking about past trauma. Like, that's not fun, obviously, but I'm so like curious about sex, and like that's why I want to like be an intimacy coordinator and like just learn more about sex. And like, even with findom, it's like sex can be psychological. Like, that's so cool to me, and like it's so amazing to like talk about and learn about. But it's like not everyone has this safe space, like with their best friend, like with their family, with whoever. So it's like, what are they supposed to do? And I guess that's why it's like drives us to make this content. So it's like, maybe they can see this, you know, because like it's just sex impacts us all like in such a weird, like beautiful, but also bad way at the same time. So I don't know, but I hope you guys got something for this. And like, obviously just so dry about like post sex shame. Like those feelings are like horrible and not to be taken lightly. But at the same time, sex has so much beauty too. So like, I just personally want to focus more on that right now. So I don't fucking fall into the Alice's rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I'm also, babe, like I've been like Fiji's been really like inspiring me, like because she's like on this like sobriety like month, whatever, she's quitting cigarettes. So like I like haven't been smoking weed as much, like I'm working so much, but like right now, like I'm like high like,
as fuck.
I'm never high because like I smoke so much, but now I'm not. And I'm literally like looking at you like I'm high. But anyways, just
I can't even see out of these contacts.
Don't say anything about it, guys.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like, I'm very dry about the culture because I feel like in so many ways, like, we're all these little sponges that are just absorbing, like, everything around us. And, like, the pendulum swings, like we talked about with sex positive feminism. Like, it was, like, the Jersey Shore era and the crazy, like, sex tape era, Paris Hilton, Kim Kardashian. And then now we're in this, like, 4B celibacy. Like, everything has swung. Like, we're very much in a conservative time period. And it's, like, I don't know, like, just dry about... Because sometimes I forget, like, especially with you being my best friend and, like, my other best friends that are very close to me are all very, like, free spirits with, like, their sex lives and dating. So it's, like, I don't – and, like, we live in a city. So it's, like, I'm not always around that. But then I think about, like, where I grew up and also, like, being in the church and stuff like that. And I think about that repression. And, like, whenever I'm thinking about the shame, I'm, like – I honestly would rather take the shame and the freedom versus the repression and the never knowingness of stuff. So, like, I'm dry. Like, it makes me sad to think about, like, the fact that there's so many people out there that are almost, like, afraid of, like, unlocking this other part of themselves or this other experience or, like, afraid to ask questions because of what it might reveal. And I love that about us, that we always want to ask the question and, like, you know what I'm saying? So, like, I don't know. I'm dry about the culture, but like ultimately, what about us and sex and
Ultimately, it's like we're keeping it positive. Yeah, for sure. I agree with all of that. I hear you. I feel like for confused, like basically, like I feel like I got this shit like figured out. Like I still have some stuff to work on in my own life, but I'm definitely confused on like vulnerable, like intimate. I'm in love with you sex because that shit makes me want to cry for real. Like that's crazy. Like that's like
last episode you were like tantric sex only, and if you guys go back and listen to the tantric sex episode, Autumn was like never. I'm never having
which is not a like really a good thing. Like what we were talking about, like part of it is like, well, I need to figure out why. Like, why am I so afraid of that? You know what I mean? But it's like, yeah, I'm definitely confused about that. Like that is like confusing to me. Like, ew, like I can't even think about it. Like I just want to be called a whore and like then you leave. Like I don't know. And even you leave. Like we can still cuddle after, but it's just like the whole I love you, like intimate, like we're in love. Like I'm like, bro, like it's way too much for me. But the other thing I really wanted to talk about in this episode, we kind of did, but then like I didn't want to make it so long. And like we've been talking about this a lot. Like, did we take sex positive feminism too far? Because I want to revisit that episode that we did and like, you know, just talk about that a little bit because it's like too far. It's like, what do you mean by that, Autumn? But it's just like, did we embrace that way too hard? Where we like our stake in the ground was nailed the fuck in?
Did we swing too far?
Did we swing too far? Because this whole idea of like the sex work to Christian pipeline, like those are things I want to continue to explore and things I still feel confused about.
Yeah, same. I feel like I'm right now, again, in my quitting cigarettes, dry January time period, I'm just like confused about like, and mental health. Like I'm just like confused about when I'm doing something as a coping mechanism and when I'm doing something intentionally into better, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and when is too far and when does it matter? When is it not that deep? And I feel like a lot of the times it really doesn't matter, but then sometimes I wonder if like I've hurt other people in casual sex by like not being clear enough about the fact that I don't want anything.
Yeah, see,
or,
that's
like,
so
boundaries,
nice.
like, you know,
I've
like
never once thought that. Like I'm a fucking
I don't
bitch.
think I have either, but then like I've been consuming a lot of content.
It's not fun.
About like like a lot of girls are in a place about like situationships and like guys not texting them back and ghosting and da-da-da. And like,
Right.
I was in a situationship with the last dude and like kind of felt that to a degree of like, oh, I like him more than he likes me and like whatever. But like in most scenarios, like I am the person that's like hurting other people. And so like that is like interesting to think about. And like I think I have gotten a lot better at like being upfront about like what I want out of this so that like it is mutually enjoyable. But I think because of like that poem, the way that I fuck sometimes, like I am very much in the moment and making you think like we are connecting and making you think that I'm like in love with you. And then like I'll never text you back again. And I don't know if that's hurtful to a person because I see girls talk about that when it's a guy.
Yeah, that's so true. But it's like,
you know,
that was like your play. Like that's, you're centering your pleasure because it turns you on to act
is that
like that.
a bad but that's the other thing is like, what is like, I think I want to look at sex more like a mutual act, like a dance of like two people, whether it is
not
leading
just
to something,
us.
and not just like capitalistic. I mean, sex work like capitalism is fine, but like just me and like my pleasure, because there's a line though too, and part of me thinks I'm doing it in rebellion because I've had like the last dude I was with tell me like, oh, like you're just in love with me because I was fucking you too crazy, da da da. And it's like, bro, like no, like I've had great sex with people and I don't fall in love with them. Like that's a common myth that women just like aren't capable of doing that. But yeah, I'm just confused about, I'm still figuring out my relationship to casual sex, one night stands, and also like how much I should care about other people. I don't know.
Because it's like, yeah, that's such a good point. Because it's like, I do think you want to center your own pleasure, but like also there's a line because you also are with someone else. And like, I just
you
like, oh my God, it's
them.
like, that's like seriously white people shit. Like literally just like, it's all me. Like my experience. Like, yeah, I didn't even think about that guy. Like, are you traumatized because that security guard told us to stop and like your dick was out? Like, I didn't even care.
And
Who
it's
cares?
also like when we talk about, and this is what I'm realizing more the more we cover topics about men and the fact that they are full emotional beings and not just these like robots that don't feel anything. Right. And I think I've realized because I know like, one guy like last year like was so into me and I treated him like, I mean, I was upfront about shit, but like I was like using him and I felt, you feel bad. You know what I'm saying? Like guys have feelings too. And it's just like, I don't want to be like, like I see so many women complaining about it on the man side, but then I'm like, I'm the female version of that sometimes. And that's not cool. I don't know. Because
it happens in queer relationships too.
Yeah.
It's like there's always like these dynamics at play. But yeah, that's such an interesting thing to think about. And also I'm just like, damn, I suck. Because I've never, like, I do think about the other person, of course. Like I do. But like in general, it's like I'm just setting myself hard as fuck.
I mean, all you can control is yourself. Like you can't be like too,
but still just like, you know, caring about people. But I do feel like you're like very like you are one of the most generous people I know. Like you're a Pisces. Thanks, like that makes sense. I think you do it too much and I don't do it at all. So like that's like both our problems. No, I'm just being funny, guys. Okay, guys, we have the giggles a little bit, but that about does it for this episode. Make sure you guys are subscribed on YouTube, follow on Spotify and Apple. We post episodes every single week. Make sure you guys comment and keep the conversation going. You can always DM us if you have more thoughts or topic suggestions on Instagram, which is at So Wet So Dry. The O's are zeros. We post polls every single week. We would love for you guys to submit in them and hope you like the episode.
Yes, we also have listener support. It's 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99 a month. It is in the bottom of the description of every single episode, no matter what platform you guys are listening on.
We'll catch you in the next episode. Bye.
2025 outs.
Being a girl's girl.
Situationships with no boundaries.
Turf feminism.
Hetero pessimism.
Being friends with Republicans.
Idolizing celebrities. The manosphere, but also men are trash.
Paying for Ubers, like you can walk.
Uber Eats, we are cooking at home.
Working jobs that do not pay you enough.
Doubling back.
The term girl boss.
Looks maxing and self-improvement content.
Feeling shame about your fucked up kinks.